Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Today is class 4, and I do not know where the time is going. It is exciting, but also I'm like, wow, we're really like 6 months into this pandemic. But really, today we're talking about things that are actually around this like ready to interview spot, right? So all these other things are very important things, especially for applying for jobs or getting opportunities to come to you. But you know, we want to get you in the interview process. And once you're in the interview process, we want to get you to this offer stage. And we want you to, keep getting good feedback and that sort of thing in the interview process. So we are going to focus a lot on that and as well as some negotiations today. Does anyone have any questions before we get started on this topic? Also, just realized I can't see anyone's faces in Zoom. I'm not really sure what's going on with Zoom right now, but it's okay. You all can see no, actually I'm not sharing my screen. I'm sorry. That is why.
Oh.
There we go. That would definitely be why I did see Zoom. Whew. Yes. Okay. So we are ready to interview. This is class 4. Okay. Preparing for the interview. There's a lot that is covered in this. And so this is literally like everything from like talking to the person on that's going to be your phone screen. This is about in the actual interview process. How do you prepare? What questions you need to ask? Like how to really research this company and also negotiations. And so one of the most important things about interviewing, especially because you have to do this on every phone screen call you are ever going to do, is you have to be able to tell your story. Because what they usually do is they say, and Keeney, I'm just going to use you as an example, is like, hi, Keeney, this is Facebook, and, we're calling you about the such and such a role, and we would love to tell you more about it. So this is based in New York City at our headquarters, well, not our world headquarters, but our New York City headquarters. It works with this team, and we're doing X, Y, Z. And they usually will kind of tell you a bit about the role and like the expectations. If a company like Facebook might assume you already know a lot, but there's other companies where they haven't told you about them, and they'll kind of say, hey, we're a company and this is what we do. Like, how much do you know about us? I'll say also key tip is like usually do some research so you can kind of at least come with some basics about what they are. If they have to explain it to you from scratch, it's not the end of the interview process, but it definitely helps to come with answers because it sets you apart. But then there's this part where they're like, hey, Keeney, tell me about yourself. And you have to eloquently have this summary about yourself and kind of your career that tells what you do in a way that's not going to take up like a full 30-minute phone call, because usually they want to hear about you and then they're going to ask you specific questions related to like your experience and that sort of thing. But in this kind of telling your story, you have to say like what you do and where you do it now. So like for me, I would say I'm a product manager currently working at Priceline doing XYZ. Like I would say like leading our testing and experimentation team, as well as adding new partners to our platform, which specifically that means anytime there's a new rental car company that wants to be on Priceline, I work with them and our backend teams to integrate that. So anything where in your industry, or like in the industry you're interviewing into, if someone might not understand that, or even within your industry, someone might not understand it, like adding a partner to Priceline, like I don't think any of you guys understood what the heck I meant when I said that until I was like, if there's a new rental car company that wants to be added to Priceline, all of you guys know what rental cars are. You know what a rental car company is and does, and you understand that people want to be able to sell those on Priceline. So, summarize what you do and cater this to what is relevant to the job. And so if I'm interested in growth in testing experimentation, I definitely want to focus on, I lead our testing experimentation team for rental car. Talk about a couple big accomplishments. So even if you have, I'll say if you have numbers here and you can say, I've increased our conversion by 3%, by improvements we've done on the front end, or like we've done this many experiments, which is the most volume we've done. And if you don't have numbers, you can just say, I've like managed all of our partnerships and done this and da 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 da. And like, we've seen our partnerships grow. And even if you don't have these numbers for the interview, you could say, I don't have those numbers like in front of me right now, but I can always follow up with you later. But you can always just kind of generalize if you don't have the specific numbers. What led you to this point? Like, why did you specifically come to this point? You can kind of say, you know, I've been in tech for like 10 plus years. I've always wanted to be a product manager because I love the intersection of kind of business and technology and a very collaborative role. If you're in a role where what you're doing now is not where you want to be, then I would definitely focus on what about the job you want is similar to kind of where you are now. Like you're like, I really love organizing things, being efficient, and that's what led me into this. And I want to be able to use that in my next career, because this is kind of a story that's bridging your past to your future. Because also what you don't want to do is focus so much on your past that they have no idea like what you want to do in the future. Not just like what you want to do, but they basically have no idea. Like if you're interviewing for a job that is not in what you do now, you don't want them to have no idea what you did in the past has to do with what they're doing, or like why you would want this other job. If you, let's say, been doing like operations roles for the last number of years, and now you're kind of like, I want to go into project management, and you want to kind of bridge how operations and project management are similar, and how you're now moving those skills into this new field. Yeah, and like I said, you should always highlight skills and experience that would map to this current job. And you also just have to make sure you're using that same language, which you should be able to find in job postings. And also if you are doing, we talk about this a little later, about mock interviews with other people who are also trying to get into that industry or already in the industry. That'll help you really hear how they refer to those things and what you're looking for in this new job. So you can call experience, skills, what you want to do more of that relate to leveling up in this next job. I've told people before, I'm interested in this job because this is a growth role. I love growth specifically because I love finding new opportunities and being able to test and experiment there. Like I find working with the data to identify what's working and what's not working really exciting. Or when there's other jobs which were data specific roles, I just say like, I know I want to work with AI as a PM in the future. And so I know this role would give me more experience with data, which would help me get to a PM role eventually working with AI. So this is again, like how are you bridging your past to your future? And like, I would just kind of practice this a couple times. I would write it out, some major bullet points, because again, there's going to be time for like, they're going to be able to ask you questions. And also like, you don't want it to be something where the whole 30 minutes is just you talking. But at the same time, don't say so little that they're kind of like, okay, so you are a project manager and you worked here and you're looking for a new job. Like that's not helpful for a recruiter. So this is an important thing. And I would just like kind of practice, like, what is your elevator pitch? That's like maybe anywhere from like 5 to 10 minutes. Some people might say like 5 to 7 minutes, whatever you feel comfortable with. But I would definitely kind of get this down, because it can be challenging trying to think about like, wait, what do I do again? Especially if you feel like you're on the spot. Okay, researching your interview. So definitely you need to use several sites for this. And also you should be not listed on here. You should also be using People, but definitely Glassdoor, Indeed, and similar sites should have comments on terms of the interview process. Glassdoor especially talks about this. Try to learn about how many steps, and you can definitely ask that in that first call, but also these interview sites, or these sites that talk about interviews, will talk to you kind of like how many steps there were in the process. That should be very helpful to you. How many people are typically in interviews? You're not always gonna be able to find this on the internet, but if you can find this out from a person, or if you do find it on the internet, this is great. So at least you're like mentally prepared if you show up to an interview and there's like 5 to 7 people on the Zoom call, so, and there's certain places where it's not uncommon for there to be multiple people, or for certain companies, they do really specific things in terms of their interview format. And then what are the typical questions asked in each stage of the interview, so you know specifically how you need to be preparing and what types of questions you need to be rehearsing. Does anyone have questions on this stuff?
Quick question.
Yeah.
When you say people, does that kind of go back to what you talked about in terms of maybe connecting with people in private groups?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. So what you're going to do is you're going to reach out in those groups and say, hi, does anyone work for, like, I'm just going to use Facebook because I used it earlier. Does anyone work at Facebook that could talk to me about the interview process, or has recently interviewed there? So definitely do that, because people will definitely reach out and say, yeah, I would love to talk to you. This is what you need to do. I've previously interviewed at Facebook, and people were like, and there's a lot of information online about interviewing at Facebook, but some of the things that I didn't get from some of those resources that I got from people who have interviewed there have been things like read Mark Zuckerberg's and Sheryl Sandberg's Facebook pages, because they have public Facebook pages. And so what they typically post there is what the company's going to be focused on for the next like 6 to 12 months. And that was something I hadn't heard anywhere else. So there's going to be things that talking to people who work there or have interviewed there that you're not going to get from some of these websites. And some, depending on the company, some of these companies might not have a lot on Glassdoor in the first place. And you could also privately reach out in LinkedIn messages as well, because some of these companies are not going to be very big, and you might just need to reach out to people within the company to kind of like better understand. That answer your question, Kini?
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions on this? Great. So this is just an example. So this is kind of the interview section of Glassdoor. I just picked Google here, and this was like a product manager interview question, like what is an area where Google is underinvested? I'll say in product management specifically, Google is known for asking these very open-ended questions, but they actually have like very specific frameworks that they expect you to solve them in to show your thinking. And so they have people who can kind of share their ideas of how to answer them. Like this one specifically, so there's certain careers where there's a lot of interview prep material for jobs like Facebook, Google, those kind of places. So this one actually you can see says prepfully.com/practice interviews. So that it looks like they're providing one answer and then hoping you're gonna go to Prepfully and get an answer there, or like be able to practice things there. But some of these actually will just have like people will actually just give you how they would answer in Glassdoor specifically. But this is generally what it looks like when you kind of go to interviews, is you can kind of read more about questions, and people will actually also rate their interview experience and specifically kind of call out why they did or didn't like the interview process. Actually, one thing I'm going to call out, one thing that Glassdoor is doing, it seems like they're adding certain flags in terms of companies that are still hiring and are also having a hiring surge. I mean, Google is a really big company, and even though ad revenue is down, apparently they're on a hiring surge. So definitely something in general, if you're going through Glassdoor, to just note in terms of who's hiring. Okay, so this is an interview that's pretty common for everyone. And these are behavioral interviews. And what is a behavioral interview before I actually kind of get to this part? Behavioral interviews is where they're like, tell me about a time that you did this, or tell me about a time a coworker did that. How did you deal with this? Those are behavioral interviews. They're trying to understand how would you behave in this scenario. I would definitely write down questions you think will be asked, especially common questions. Like the two of the most common questions I'm always asked are like, tell me about a time you had to convince a coworker of something, or tell me about a time you worked with a difficult coworker. There's usually other things people ask, but I would definitely think of common ones. Or if you Google behavioral interviews, there are a lot of questions that will come up as well. You could also look on Glassdoor and other sites as well, but you could just honestly Google behavioral interviews. And then what you should do is look at your source resume and write out which experiences of yours map to these behavioral questions, so that when you go into the interview, that is not the first time that you're thinking about what is the perfect story to answer this question. Because I don't know about you, but I've gone into interviews before and been asked a question and I came up with a good answer on the spot. And then I finished the interview and I realized, I'm like, oh, like I had an answer that was like perfect for this. And I thought about it after the interview ended. Not that the first answer was bad, but I had one where I'm like, literally, this was the most difficult person I've ever worked with. And that was not the answer I gave. And so definitely these are good to practice, rehearse. And these are the kind of questions that you can rehearse with anyone. So you don't even have to rehearse this with someone who's at that company. Like you can just call up your cousin and your friend to be able to rehearse this type of question. Do you have questions about behavioral interviews? Okay. Okay. First part of the homework. I want you to go and write down like five common behavioral questions, especially if ones that either you've heard in your interviews or like you can Google them. Like, so again, example would be, tell me about a time you convinced someone to do something they didn't want to do. And then go to Glassdoor, look up those behavioral interview questions from this company or similar question and write them down. And then revisit your source resume and write down at least one scenario that best fits each of these questions. You don't have to write out like full paragraphs of word for word what you're going to say. But what you want to do is really be able to say like, okay, this scenario maps best to this. So that way, before you go into your interviews, you can kind of read your common behavioral questions, which scenarios are supposed to be mapped to what, so that you kind of at least have like a little bit of a memory jog before you go into the interview. Does anyone have questions about this homework? No? Okay. All good. Okay. So this type of interview can be specific to like some careers. Some careers don't really do this type of interview. Some just kind of do different things in behavioral interviews or ask you about specific experience. If you are like a PM, a software engineer, data scientist, there might be other ones. I'm most familiar with the things in tech. They have a lot of these problem solving ones. And like one of my first recommendations for this is if there are a lot of problem solving type of questions for the type of job you're going to interview for, if there are books and newsletters available about these type of interviews, buy them now, subscribe now, just do it, because a lot of those companies literally just expect you to know how to interview that way. And so unfortunately there's like no way around it. Like you absolutely, I mean, maybe some people, I'll say there's a few people where they're like, oh, this is literally how I think all the time. And so I didn't need them. But I would say, if you want to increase your odds, like I would say these are definitely important. And like you can kind of like, in those kind of private groups you joined in some of the previous classes, that kind of thing. You can always reach out to people for recommendations in your specific field. And then research on Glassdoor, Indeed, what type of problem solving questions that they ask. So like I showed you a Google one. So that was an actual question that Google asked somebody. Just always kind of, and they might not ask that specific question, but you kind of need to be aware of what they might ask, especially because like for problem solving questions, they rotate these a lot because they don't want people to memorize these. They want people to get good at the problem solving approach, not a specific answer. And then practice, I would start like by practicing these on paper. And then once you kind of feel comfortable on paper, then practice them like while recording yourself on video on your phone. So you can both re-listen to yourself answering it and also watch your face, especially since so much of this is going to be on video now. You really need to see what do you look like. And I'll say, I hate listening to recordings of myself. I hate watching video of myself. I make myself do this when I rehearse talks, when I practice interviews, because if you already hate listening to yourself stumble over interview questions will definitely motivate you to get it together before your interview. So I definitely saying like, I got this, like I'll say the interview is not the time to realize that you were not as prepared as you thought you were. And then I would definitely reach out to in one of the groups, at least one of the groups you joined in lesson 2, and look out for someone to mock interview with. And you can always ask a friend if you're like, I really have too much anxiety to be mock interviewing with a stranger. But if you are in a group with people like, you're like, I could connect with these people, and you're like, I want to practice the whole thing of doing it with a stranger, or if you're in a group that is specific to your career, like again, if you're like, I want to be a project manager, I want to be a data scientist, you can reach out to other people in that field and say, hey, I'm looking for people to mock interview with. Would anyone be interested? Does anyone have questions about this part of the interview? Okay. So this is the other part of homework 4. For those of you who don't really have to do this, or like you've never been in a career where like problem solving is part of it, and if you research and see like these are the type of questions that people ask in the career you're going into, don't sweat this part. You can skip it. But if you are, like I'll say like Caroline, like you want to be a PM, like 100% you need to do this. Research any problem solving type interview questions that'll be in your interviews. Like definitely solve at least one on paper, do at least 2 of these in a video recording. And then I would definitely recommend setting up like a mock interview, either in a career group, or if you're like, I'm not ready for the career group yet, do it with a friend. And you can always do more later, because there are people who literally just, I want to say do it for fun. But like I personally don't actually like interviewing. I also don't like mock interviewing, but I force myself to do it. And I usually will set up more than one just so I get that rehearsal, because it's better to realize that your nerves are gonna like how your nerves are gonna act before you get into that interview than it is to find out in the interview. So at least you have like your ability to kind of figure out like, okay, that really stressed me out. Like, let me try it again and see if I can try these things to make myself less nervous and be able to solve these problems in real life. And also say in any interview, whether it's behavioral or a problem solving interview, one of the biggest things is like, take your time to think. Do not be scared of pausing. If you feel like it's awkward, say, give me one moment. I just need a moment to like think. If you need to say, give me one moment, let me write some things down on paper first, that is totally acceptable. Even on the phone, if you say, I need a moment to like write this down to let me visualize. That was one of the hardest things for me to learn and do, because I hate awkward silences, especially if I feel like I'm supposed to have all the answers in the interview. And it took me forever to be able to do that, but it worked out way better than me getting too anxious and stumbling through the interview, because the more anxious you sound, the more I feel like wound up you get throughout the interview. And then like, it doesn't usually, I've definitely had interviews that turned out better than I thought they would. But I think it's better to just be transparent and say, hey, give me a moment. And then even if you're like, and if you ever have something where you're like just completely stumped, do your best to try to start answering it. And if they start asking questions and you're like, I just have no idea, just be honest and just be like, you know, and it's hard because it's an emotional time, because you're like, you want to have the answers, you want this job. But like, think about, regardless of the job you're going for, like, you are still a human. Like, you still need to protect yourself, like mentally and emotionally. Any questions about this next part of that part of the homework? Okay. Okay, so this actually, some of you guys were in my in the webinar I did with this startup called Catch, and they did this thing called AC in the online interview, and I took some of the things from that and put them in here as well, in terms of like really good tips for AC in this online interview, especially for many people, not everyone, but for many people, your interview process will be completely online and your first day will be online. Okay, so this online interview, we're really gonna go through three main things: location, appearance, and like dealing with camera. I'll also kind of give some other tips that aren't here, but in terms of like just the rehearsal and sounding confident and that kind of stuff, we already kind of covered in the last one. So we're not going to cover that here. So location, go to a well-lit and quiet spot in your home. And great if you can have like a wall behind you, because then people like, there's no risk that someone's going to walk behind you. There's less chance for distraction, that sort of thing. And I say well-lit because you are going to look, I'll say like, you're just going to look very different if your face looks dark and you just look, just people should see you. And it's also, I think like subconsciously people trust people that they can see and that kind of thing. And so definitely make it easy for people. If you have to like move a lamp or something, which I think I talk about that in appearances, so that it's closer to you so that you look more well lit. And if you have to go in a bedroom, that's fine too. That's just a normal thing that we're having to deal with now. I would just say whatever room involves the least disruption. Does anyone have questions about this? Okay. Appearance. So definitely research the type of dress for that company culture. So if you're like going into a place, like if you were interviewing at Facebook, Facebook is not a super formal environment. So if you look like you're wearing a tuxedo on your video interview call for Facebook, that might not be the best thing to wear. But you also might not want to opt for a t-shirt, because even though people at Facebook are very casual, you might want to be able to show like, I, you know, thought about what I'm going to wear today and I dressed it up like maybe a little bit. Or maybe a t-shirt would work for you, depending on what it looks, but just make sure it looks like you were very intentional about what you wore to this interview online, even though it's online. And then wear like the clothes and makeup you normally wear for an interview. So if that is what you would wear in person for an interview, then wear that actually in your online interview. So you feel like you're in the process. So you're in that mental space as well. Don't feel the need to go overboard on makeup. Like you don't need to go all like face contour and everything else. You don't have to act like you're filming a movie, but if you normally wear makeup, like definitely wear it. If you don't normally wear makeup, like some people say, oh, just put it on. Like I'm the kind of person where I'm like, if you don't normally wear makeup, like if you're putting on makeup, like you're just going to be like, I don't look or feel like myself. So, because then it becomes a thing of like, at what point into starting the new job are you gonna stop wearing it, or is this gonna be your new thing? But if you normally wear makeup, go ahead. You just don't have to like go all out with it. And then again, like use a lamp to brighten your video view. Like you don't have to go out and buy one of those special little like I don't know what they call them, like light box lamps or whatever. But you can just take a normal lamp if you have one, hopefully. And just try to put it situated so it's closer to you, or like aim it at you if you have a desk lamp that works that way. Try to do that just so that it's a little brighter, and hopefully you don't have to spend more money. Any questions on appearance? Okay. You know, when we had this, I know Keeney was there, but when we had this webinar, there were like a lot of questions. So I just want to make sure that even though some of these things might seem obvious, I just want to make sure that because some of these things I think can be less obvious. So I just want to make sure we have time to answer questions if there's questions about them. Okay.
I had a tip that was included on the webinar that you did that I did, which is, and you ladies might already do it, but it's definitely getting dressed from head to toe. And that includes putting on shoes. So even though they're only going to see the top half or maybe the face and shoulders, getting dressed from head to toe. And honestly, that's not something I probably would have done.
Yeah.
Into the thing, because nobody's going to see my feet. But.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Definitely, because I'm not even sure about feet. I think just like the lower half, I wouldn't think to do right now. But it does make you actually, now that you think about it, it makes you kind of get into the whole interview process and probably put your best foot forward. But it was funny because I was like, really don't wear that, but okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And one thing, so I was teaching, last week I was teaching a class online at Columbia. And so those students, the students we were teaching with, they're like high school age. But one of the things that when we were doing the training before we taught was like, they were like, they're like, we understand a lot of you are working from home, and working from home, you might be wearing like, whatever, like some people, they're like, some people are wearing just like underwear or like basketball shorts, like lower half. And they were like, you're working with kids. So they're like literally get dressed from head to toe. They didn't necessarily, I'll say like for the interview thing, I also recommend what Kini said in terms of the tip of like even wear the shoes, but just in terms of the lower half, like I'll say the likelihood all of a sudden your laptop's going to go flying away and like it's going to fall and they're going to see that you're wearing like basketball shorts is not very high. But it sounded like someone, so I was like, also like, when is that going to ever happen? But one of the people who was doing the training for Columbia was talking about they've had scenarios, not with the kids, but like in their job where they were like, yeah, we were on the Zoom call together and this person was on Zoom on their phone and their phone fell and like, they were like, I saw a lot. Like, and you don't want that to be you. Or let's say like something were to happen. It's summer. There are bees, there are mosquitoes. Hopefully they don't get in your home. But what if one did, like, and you had to get up and start running, like, God forbid, like, you're not properly dressed below. So definitely, like, think about those things. And, like, what Kini said, like, head to toe, like, it changes kind of, like, your mental space. And what Sky was saying, mental space in terms of you being present for that interview fully. And also talking about the camera, this is something we also talked about. I think in the webinar, we recommend looking into the camera. I think some places you can look into the screen depending on like what's going on. They definitely, I'll say like if it's those automated interviews where like things like hire review, you have to look like you have to be able to, there's like not a person, it's a recording that you're interviewing with. They ask you these questions, you answer. Then you want to look directly into the camera because the video they're going to see is going to look like you're talking directly to them. For these kind of things, I think everyone's kind of looking, like I'm looking at the screen right now a lot, like not up at the camera. For those kind of things, I think that I'll say personally, I think it's okay. But if you want to look directly at the camera, that's fine too. But if you're going to look down at like your notebook and that kind of thing, make sure at the beginning of the interview, you let them know you're taking notes and just kind of be like, oh, by the way, do you mind if I take notes? So also like, that's good because they know that, oh, like this person is really attentive. They're going to be fully in the interview. And also if you're like constantly like down here looking at things, they're not like, what's happening? Like hopefully no one would assume you're doing other stuff, but it's a wild world. So, just communicating what's going on to them is really helpful. Okay, so those are like the main takeaways in terms of online interviewing that we have. Does anyone have any other questions about interviewing online that they want to discuss? Okay. So this is a really important one because there was a point in my career where I was just literally like, I was like, at the time I hated my day job. I don't hate my day job now, but at the time I hated my day job and I was literally like anything else just to get out of here, and realizing that would not do. And specifically because realizing that like that sometimes puts you in a place where like you just end up hating the new job as well. And you're like, so what's the point if I hated both places? And so I think this is a really important aspect of the interview process. So like really understanding what are your non-negotiables, vacation time, pay, title, chemistry with your future team, because they'll probably ask you some of these things in the interview process, but also you need to kind of know this to ask them questions as well, to get to know them, and also really be able to see red flags when they come up. Like if, these people are like, we are working, I don't know, like 80-hour work weeks, and it is a job where there is no reason to be working 80-hour work weeks, that's a red flag. So definitely like know your non-negotiables. What are your nice to haves where you're like, I really wish they have this, but it's not like a deal breaker. And then also just note like where your personal values overlap with the company's. because I think that'll tell you, like, I'll just say it'll tell you a lot about, like, I'll say, not saying it will tell you if you will be happy there, but if there's things where you're like, wow, my boss is a workaholic, no one ever, like, the vacation time is terrible, no one seems to take it. Or if you're like, I'll say, I'm not very fixated on title, but if someone's like, no, my next job, I need this title, and I'm not gonna be happy, like, you need to define that before you get into the interview process. Because if you get to the offer stage, right, you need to be able to say, like, no, this is a deal breaker. Or you need to be able to, like, or if you kind of know in the beginning and and you realize, you're like, oh, like, they said this is a senior role and now they're saying this is actually more of a mid-level role based on someone else they gave this job, and now the kind of, it's shifted a little. If the title is not important to you, then kind of say, thank you for allowing me to interview. This title thing is really important. So, like, it's possible you can negotiate that later, but I would also just kind of understand up front, is this something where it's likely to not budge? Also, one thing I want to say is, like, one of the things my mentor told me is, nothing is final until there's an offer on the table. And even then you negotiate that offer. So even if they're like, oh, this is what this is, feel free to go to the interview process. Like, don't stress yourself out about an offer that doesn't even exist yet. Like, let them give you an offer. And if the offer doesn't fit, you just say no. And that was something really hard for me to learn, because I was just like, I would feel so much pressure. Like, oh, I went through this whole interview process. I got to really know these people. I liked them. I told them how excited I am about this job. And then I actually, I'm like, I don't really want it. And the idea of having to explain to somebody that I don't really want it after, like, going through interviews and telling them I was so excited about it, like, terrified me. And so that was something, learning to say, like, no, because certain things didn't align in terms of my values, like, was something that was really hard for me to learn. And so this is, because I think this is very important. This other part of the homework, you're going to write down the most important values to you. And then during that interview process, compare what you are hearing to these values. Like, I'll say my personal values are, like, work-life balance, collaboration over superstars, opportunities to grow, like, a manager passionate about being a manager. So, like, if I have a manager where it kind of just seems like, if I'm like, oh, well, like, how did you become a manager? Da 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 da. And they're like, it kind of happened accidentally. I've only been doing it for a year now. Da 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 da. Like, that may weigh into my decision process. If it's kind of a place where it's kind of like, it seems like everybody is for themselves, and it's like, yeah, there's so much room to grow. Da 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 da. You just have to, like, take things when, like, there's no one's going to offer to you. Depending on how that's worded, I might be like, okay, so does that sound collaborative or does that sound like competitive? And things can be competitive and collaborative, but if it sounds like people are really just, like, vying to be the next superstar in the company, versus just working really hard to collaborate with each other. Like, for me, I'm a natural collaborator. I prefer collaboration. And so I have, like, zero interest in companies where the focus is on, like, that, like, you're either learn how to be a superstar or you're left in the dust. And, like, there's jobs that'll call you a superstar, but I think my biggest red flag with people who are, like, looking for superstars is those people who are like, I'll say, I'm not willing to die for any company. I, like, there's things where I'm like, I have boundaries. And so for me, a lot of places in tech, when they emphasize some of these things, sometimes it can mean, like, lack of boundaries, lack of work-life balance, and, like, overworking and that kind of thing. And I'm like, I will get you superstar results, but I'm going to do it in my way. And I'm not going to give you an 80-hour week. And I'm not going to, I hate political games. Like, every job has politics, but I'm like, if it is a place where there's a lot of politics at play, probably not going to be me, because it's really hard to collaborate if you're constantly scared that if you reach out to someone, they're going to think that you're coming at their neck when you're like, I just wanted to do my day job. Okay. Questions about your potential job. So these are things that you should be thinking of, like, questions that you need to ask this job. And this is going to vary from, like, job to job, because the job requirements are going to be different. So they'll tell you different things and the recruiters will tell you different things. But these are things you should consider. Like general questions that you might not have used before. But so if these are not answered already, so these are general ones. These are going to be like your phone screen level questions. Like who does this role report into? Is this like, this is reporting into a director, a VP? Is this reporting to the CEO? Like who does your potential boss report into? Because also understanding hierarchy matters. Like some people are like, I prefer flat organization. Some people are like, I like a lot of structure because it kind of tells me what I'm supposed to be doing and where and that sort of thing. You can ask them, how do annual reviews work at that company? Because that's also a red flag if they're like, we just don't even do them. Or it might be something where they like, if they can't even explain the process to you or articulate it, that might be a red flag. Or if like just in general, for you to understand like, okay, this is how the process works, da 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 da, and they maybe have a process, but it kind of gives you a better idea. Is this something that you're interested in, or what the expectations will be for you in advance of review time? And then like, what is the company's biggest? And then these are just other ones I say, but like the thing is, you should come up with your own that also matter to you. But like, what is the company's biggest opportunity for growth? I'm a product manager, so growth is really important to me. So really understanding like, what is that biggest opportunity? And even if you're not a product manager, right? Understanding, is your role in a part of the company that is where they're investing in growth? Or are you joining a part of the company that's kind of like, this is more the maintenance part of the company? And depending on what you want to do, some people might be like, I really care about maintenance because it's reliable. I'm going to wake up and I'm going to know what I do every day. There's other people that are like, I need to change. I want to be part of the things that are going to grow the company. I like things that are changing constantly. Just knowing that about yourself and getting answers to these are going to be helpful. Why is this role open? Did this person quit? Did they have any information they can share with you about that? Maybe you can't ask them why that person quit, or is it that like this is a brand new role that has never existed before? And then that's something where it leads into other questions of, if it's never existed before, specifically, what are those expectations? Because somebody may have written a job requirement and not even really know what that role does. Like like 2 jobs ago, I was leaving a job and they had me write the requirement for basically the job requirement that was going to go out so they could find my replacement. And, and I'm like, it says a lot that like no one else in the company knew enough about my role. I mean, there's a reason why I was leaving, but knew about my role to even write the job requirement. I'm like, do you not just know what I do? But yeah. Also, like, what is again, in the beginning stages, ask them directly, what is the interview process for this role? Understand like how many stages there are. Who are the types of people you're going to be talking to? This is just good to know, and you should be writing these things down when they give you answers. And these are not all the questions you should ask, but you should definitely be putting together like your own things for every single job you're applying to. And then you have questions that when you interview, there's certain places you're not going to get to interview your potential manager. Google does not let you interview with the team that you're specifically going to be on in advance. But there's a lot of places, like my interview at Priceline was specifically with my current manager. So my first non-recruiter phone conversation was with my now manager. And then my in-person interview was with her and a bunch of other people as well. And asking them things like, what is the manager's management style? What does work-life balance look like to them? How do they conduct one-on-ones? Because I've met people where they're like, the manager never schedules them in advance. And maybe some people like that, some people hate it. Or it's like, I do one-on-ones every 2 weeks, this is how I prepare for them, or this is what I expect from my employee, because one-on-ones can also be a source of anxiety for a lot of people. So understanding what this potential manager, like how they conduct them, is going to help you decide, are me and this manager going to get along? Is this manager going to be able to support me and my needs? And then one of my favorite questions is, how is success defined for this role? So ahead of time, like what is my North Star? Because it can be kind of nerve-wracking after you've already started and be like, wait, how are they going to determine that I'm successful in this role? Like when I go into my interview, my review, like a year from now or something like that, how are they going to measure me specifically? And so understanding how that person defines success, and then sometimes it won't be well defined. And for maybe places like startups and that kind of thing, that's normal. I'm personally someone where it's like ill-defined success metrics make me nervous. So it's really kind of your tolerance and kind of what the answer is here. And then also, like, if growth in a role is important to you, like, what does growth look like for this role? Because I think that's also important to understand, like, how would I, if I'm going to say, like, if you're interviewing for like a product manager position or a senior product manager position, how do you know what is the next level, and like, how do people get there in that company? Because what happens a lot is we join companies and then sometimes we don't realize till we're already there, like 6 months, that like people don't really get promoted except for maybe every 5 years. And like, that's fine. That's not a problem. But if you're like, well, no, based on what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to get promoted, I'm trying to be this in the next however many years, then you might be like, okay, I'm happy to go there and I'm just gonna start looking for a new job after 2 years. Or like, if you're like, no, I'd rather be somewhere where I know I can grow internally, which I know that's never guaranteed, but that might be something you might want to look into. And again, like what my mentor said is like, you know, there's nothing to be stressed out about until there's an offer on the table. So don't necessarily just like cut off the interview process here. Like, let them give you an offer. And then also, offers give you a lot of data about companies and like what you're valued at and what you're worth. Not all companies are going to try to, I'll say most companies aren't going to try to pay you what you are actually valued at, but it gives you a lot of data again in terms of what companies are out there offering, and also gives you great negotiation practice. Okay, we're going to talk about red flags. I'm going to have to like speed up because we're going to talk about negotiations too. This is really important, especially because everyone here is a woman. And many people here are Black women, women of color. So these are things you really should make sure you're asking questions or kind of like noting as you're going through like these interview processes or like reading about companies. The manager seems like they might be a micromanager. I've never heard anyone say, I love micromanagers. Definitely like look out for that. Job seems like there's going to be no growth at all. That's something to look out for. Not saying that's an automatic no, but if you're like, yeah, like I'm just going to be looking for a new job in a year, like I'll take that into consideration. Reviews on Glassdoor mention things that might be a nightmare for you. Sorry for the typo, but I've been using Canva for the first time. So Canva's spell check is not the greatest. So I'm still learning how to use Canva. So apologies for some of these typos. But like, it would be a nightmare for you if there's something where it tells me management is full of micromanagers and everything's super political, da 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 da. For me, that'd be an automatic no. I hate politics. I can't deal with micromanagers. If somebody's just like, I hate it here because the pay isn't super high, da 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 da, I might, depending on what they give me in the offer, if the offer is within my range, I might accept it and be like, yeah, I'll just leave in 2 years, depending on what it is. And I can't define what that is for you, but you need to decide for yourself. Reviews on Glassdoor are consistently low. Like if you're looking at a company where it's like 1 star, 2 stars on Glassdoor out of 5, definitely note that, read the reviews, but that might be a sign. Coworkers seem potentially toxic. Like if you're talking to people in the interviews and they seem terrible, believe them the first time, because once you're in that job, you're going to have to start this whole interview process all the way from square one with these really toxic coworkers on your back every day. Lack of diversity in interviews. Usually you get to go into an office and see if literally every single person you interview with is a white man. That might be a red flag, especially depending on what industry you're in. Like if they don't even have a single woman interviewing you, a woman of color, a person of color, those kind of things, then I would just kind of note that. And then if you have to ask questions later in terms of what their kind of makeup is in the company, like definitely bring that up. Because if you're the kind of person where if you walked into a company where everyone's a guy and that would be something where you're like, I don't want to work in that company, definitely definitely just, you wouldn't be able to see that on Zoom as much. So you want to like kind of scope this out and ask early. And also, again, values don't align, because that's going to be a nightmare. Again, company seems like they're struggling financially. Company is in the news for discrimination against women and or people of color or people with disabilities. All of these things. Okay, we are actually, a quick question. I know, so we might go over a little bit. Does everyone have to get off right at 8:00?
Nope.
No. Can we go over like?
I do, but if you guys go over, like, I can just go back and check out the video.
Okay. Yeah, because we might be over like by like 5 to 10 minutes. Sorry, I was like, there's no way we're gonna go over this week. Oh my gosh. Okay. We'll go on to research. I'll try to kind of go quickly. It was a public company, so this is important. This is something where like no one ever told me until my one of my mentors literally was like she looked up this company, looked at their public reports, looked up all this information, and she was like, they're in the media industry and they don't do, like, she's like, the media industry is like kind of falling apart. They just got purchased by like, I think it was like Univision at the time. And they have a new CEO who's been there less than a year. And she was like, there's gonna be a lot of pressure for him to perform. So I wouldn't be surprised if they do budget cuts in a year. And I ended up saying no to that job. And like literally everything she said came true. So it's a public company. Search for the annual report and read it. Even if you don't understand everything, try to do your best to understand, like, how does it seem like it's performing? Where are they investing in? How are things going there? If it's like a nonprofit, there's certain rules about how they have to release, how they're spending their money. There's like reports on how people, there's reports out there of people who rate nonprofits. Read those, read their social media. What are their recurring themes? Research who that CEO is. How long have they been there? Where else have they worked? Because then you can also look at their track record. If every company they've ever worked at has had a series of layoffs, that might be a red flag. Look up resources like Bloomberg to see what they have to say about this company and leadership. So even not just Bloomberg, if you're just like if I was looking at like Priceline performance, I might say like Booking Holdings, like performance, because it's part of Booking Holdings family. And like there'd be resources online to kind of tell me how people feel about the confidence of that company. Because even if maybe you need a job and you're like, maybe it's not going to work out, but I need money right now because of the pandemic, that's fine. But if you're in a position where you can be like, I can wait it out, like I don't want to be in a place that's going to lay me off 6 months later. These are just things that you're going to want to look at and note. Because when things get stretched with budgets, like people get stressed and that's when people get more political and more stressed out and more toxic. Okay, negotiation. So this is a really important part, and there's actually a really good homework exercise. And Megan, I know you have to go, but I can also like sync with you later to kind of go over the homework if you have questions.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. So step number one to negotiation, do not say yes on the phone. Like when they call you and like say, I'm just kidding because I've been using you as an example, Keeney, we're really excited to extend you this offer as like the senior operations director of like Rent the Runway. You say, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. I am so thrilled. Thank you so much. I will look at the information that you send over to me and I'll get back to you. What you do not say is, oh my God, yes. Or because sometimes they'll say, this is going to be your salary, they'll read you your benefits. What you don't do when they read you your salary, even if it's a salary where like, you're like, oh my God, this is more than I've ever made in my life. Do not say yes on the phone. Do not verbally commit on the phone to whatever they are offering you. If you have to do an awkward silence, definitely sound excited. Do not say yes, because this is the biggest mistake women and especially people of color make in negotiations is they say yes to the first number thrown out. The company, I tell you, unless they are a really toxic company, does not expect you to accept this first number. So do not say yes. And if the company decides they don't want to hire you because you did not say yes right away, I'll say every example I've ever heard of someone not saying yes right away, or someone trying to negotiate and them rescinding the offer, I have always heard of it being a nightmare for whoever the second person in line was that they gave the offer to, and that person saying yes. I have, like, that person is like quit within 6 months or something like that. I've heard horror stories. So always negotiate. And if they are a toxic company, then they're not going to want to negotiate with you. But good companies are not going to expect you to accept this first number. When they call you and they congratulate you and they're saying they're so excited about this and they hope you want to join, you let them know you're excited and you say, like, you've given me a lot to think about. I'm so excited. I'm going to take this and I'm going to get back to you. Thank you. That's the most important step of negotiating. The next step is you actually have to understand how much do you make. This is so important because there are times in which you will be offered a salary that is more than your current salary, and you could still end up making less money. That blew my mind the first time somebody told me that. And how does that work? You can have a salary that is more than your last salary, but the benefits might not be the same. Like, one of the jobs I left was like part of a big digital agency, and then I went to a blockchain startup. So the blockchain startup had really crap healthcare. So for one, the healthcare was they subsidized the employees' healthcare, but not the spousal healthcare. And my husband's on my insurance, so I was like, okay, so this is X amount a month. As a couple, we're paying more because they don't subsidize my spouse's healthcare. There's, like, my current company, they didn't, their dental plan, and this is why you don't ever say yes on the phone, because these are details you have to go through. They don't do out-of-network dentists. My dentist is literally out-of-network for anyone. I always have to manually submit my dental claims. Long story, I won't explain it now, but for me, I was like, okay, so if you don't cover out-of-network, then that means I would get no money back. So now I'm paying for dental insurance out of pocket because your dental insurance wouldn't cover any of this anyways. And if I, like, need a root canal or something else, I need to have dental insurance. So these are all things where it's like, you could, even though the salary is bigger, if you don't have the same tax benefits, like when you add it all up, you could be making less. So you need to kind of account for your salary, if you get a bonus, how much your company subsidizes for your healthcare, how much you pay for healthcare now, how much you're going to pay for healthcare in the future, how much your company subsidizes things like dental and vision, how much you pay for dental and vision, retirement benefits, like retirement tax benefits like a 401k, because this can shave off like thousands of dollars that make it look like you make thousands of dollars less than you actually do. So if you go to a company where it's really small and it doesn't have a 401k, and you're coming from a place with a 401k, guess what? The IRS now says, oh, wow, it looks like this person makes like 10K more than they did last year. Not just in salary, but it'll be like, okay, your salary plus your taxes. So it might be like, if you get a 10K increase in pay from one job to the next, and then they don't have pre-tax benefits for retirement, and let's say you save 10K in a year, that's 20K more to the IRS that you're making than you were the previous year. So you can lose money if you don't pay attention to these things. Transportation tax benefits, literally any financial benefits you are getting from your current company, you need to write them down. They go in a line item in a spreadsheet, track them all so that when you get an offer, you're going to go line by line in the offer and you're going to fill out the comparison. And if there is something that you cannot find in that offer, you go back to the HR person and say, hey, I had a quick question, by the way. Can you tell me how much the dental insurance is? So always go back and get that information from them. So, like, don't ever like be like, oh, I don't know, because the thing is, these are all things that, again, you could end up making more salary wise and end up total wise actually have less coming into your bank account every month. And also then again, you're going to compare their offer to each of these line items. You're always going to ask where you don't have an answer. And okay, so does anyone have a question about this?
That was very informative. Like, wow.
Yeah, this like blew my mind because I think I hired this negotiation coach right before I got the offer where I went from the bigger ad agency to the startup. And I was so excited, and they were going to offer me like, oh, how much more was it? I think it was at least like 10K more. And then I did the math. And again, this was the first time I worked with a negotiation coach. And I realized I was like losing money. And I was like, are you serious? Like, this is, and I was just like, oh my God, had I not hired this coach, I would have just been like, I wouldn't have understood how to be able to, how do you come up with this number, right? Because there's the salary you want to make plus all these other things, because you could also end up doing all these things and realizing the new amount that you're going to get is going to literally net out to be the same exact amount you're already making, which if for some reason that's okay for you, that's fine. But if you're like, I expect that my total compensation, not just your salary, is 10K more for my next job, you need to be able to compare this, because this is how you get your number. So this is when they come back to you and say like, we can't do this kind of thing. This is where you can kind of say, here's specifically why. Like I explained to my current company, like I said, it was very specific. I noticed that you guys don't handle out of network dentistry. So I like, and here's how I would like to make it up. So step 3 is you need to have your different plans. So first you're gonna have your plan A. This is the number you actually want. So if you're like, I want my total compensation, like salary plus all the other things, this is what I want it to be. And also one thing I didn't put in here that I really should put in the homework is also like, how many vacation days do you get? And then note, do you get sick days, floating holidays? So you can add up all the number of days that you would be able to get off. Never leave that out. And then the number you actually want is your plan A. If they can't give you that, then basically say, what's the next best thing? Is it a signing bonus for you? Is it additional vacation time? What is this next best thing that you'd be willing to accept? Plan C is like, if you say no to plan B, and you have to outline this before you accept the offer, before you actually have your first negotiation call with them, so that you can kind of be able to go back and forth. You don't go through all of these in the same email or in the same combo. This is going to be back and forth, but you kind of have to already know, like, what is your strategy? So plan C is, if they say no to plan B, is there anything else you're open to? And if the answer is no, this is where you walk away. If there's something else where you're like, here's something else you can do, that sort of thing. If they cannot make it work for you, be prepared to walk away. Say thank you and walk away. Like, and that's something you need to be prepared to do, but like, have your plan A, your plan B, your plan C. You might only have a plan A and plan B, but definitely always have plan A and plan B. And one thing also I'm going to say is, when you talk to them, whether it's like you have a phone call with them for negotiation, or you are, doing this via email, definitely always use this we, like, I think we can make this work, or I hope we can make this. So instead of making it sound like you are battling them, make it sound like this is a problem that you are both solving together. They already gave you an offer, so they clearly want to work with you, and you're letting them know you want to work with them. You are solving this problem together. So always say like, I hope we can make this work, or I know we can make this work. And so this homework 4, this is in the homework, but again, creating the spreadsheet, include vacation days with the salary, the bonus, any financial benefits you're getting from this current job, so that you're not having to do this on the fly. And also it's going to teach you a lot about your compensation that you probably have never really looked at in this detail, even for your current job. Anyone have questions about that piece? If you have questions in the homework, that's fine. Let me know. Yes. Okay. Yay. So that is class today. Does anyone have any questions?
I have one. For the red flags portion, you talked about you used a couple of examples that seem like I would know they are red flags until I was working the job. And that was, one of them was like working 80-hour work weeks for no reason, and people not using their vacation time. So one of the thoughts I had was maybe a way to circumvent that was to reach out to people who work there, but that seems like you do that maybe before the interview, but I don't know. So I guess I'm trying to figure out, for those two examples specifically, how would I know that?
So what you just said, reaching out to people beforehand, and I honestly, I have straight up asked managers in interviews, when is the last time you took a vacation? COVID may be a little different, but I have asked people, I've asked multiple people, when is the last time you took a vacation? And I definitely have, my current manager, I definitely asked her before, in the interview, I asked her like, how many hours do you work a week? And she was honest with me. She's like, I'm a manager, so I work a little more, but here's how I think about it for my team members. And also people who seem to skirt around that question, mm-hmm. that also may be a red flag, is if they don't want to like tell you, it might be like that it might be so horrific that they are like scared to tell you how much they're working if they really want you to join. So it's something you can definitely, this is okay. This is, you have to think about this as dating, right? Like, it's not the same as like marriage, but once you say yes to going out with them, it's like, you're going to be putting up with them for a minute. Right. And especially because this is not like normal dating. This is like your financial livelihood is tied to it. So it's a little more complicated than just like breaking up with somebody because they're a hot mess. This is somewhere between dating and marriage, in which there are still legal implications involved. And there's also like financial entanglements, but, yeah, so it's definitely something where it is okay to ask those questions. And places, if a place is like mad at you for asking that question, that's also a red flag.
Right. Okay. Thank you. That's helpful. I hadn't thought about asking those questions in an interview before, but they are things that I would want to know in terms of people's work style. I know when I had to interview people or a person to be my new co-ED, one of the things I asked was about work-life balance. And it's funny when people say, well, nothing's going to be 50-50. And I never said anything about anything being 50-50, yeah. But it's like, what are your thoughts about balancing work with life? So, okay, thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and then my thing is like, it's literally open. I've asked people who were not the manager before, how open to feedback do you feel your leadership is? Mm-hmm. And like I'll say, I don't actually, so I've asked that question several times, and based on me asking that question, I don't actually think it's a good question. Here's why. Everyone always gives their leadership like good scores for listening. And I think it's because everyone's scared to say otherwise. Like if you had to give like a percentage, what would that percentage be? And it's always like 80 or above. And I was like, every company is not 80 or above in terms of how they feel their leadership. Like, people, when they're in interviews, I feel like they will be somewhat honest about what they are doing, but if it's someone that's like above them, they are like scared. I think they are scared to talk about it. But the one thing that did tell me a lot is like the people, if I did ask that question, the people who like paused for a minute and really had to think about it, like, that's the only thing it offered me. I was like, the companies where people had to really think about the answer to the question of how well do you feel like your leadership team listens, I was like, I'm a little scared about how long it took you to answer that question. But yeah, so there's a lot of things. And that's the thing, is like, it's not just about the questions that are going to impress them. This is also about like, that's why the values part is very important, because that's going to help you figure out what are the questions that, if you were already in a job, you're like, man, I really wish I had insight into this before I signed up for this mess. So like, that's going to help you figure out your questions. Awesome. So, anyone else have any other questions for right now?
I don't have any questions. I just have like, I updated like the resume and the whole LinkedIn, like going over everything. Mm-hmm. And it just like, and I know like for LinkedIn, I remember last week we talked about how if you do have LinkedIn Premium, it kind of like scores saying, oh, this is how well you have like different skill set and everything like that.
Yep.
So after I did that, it was just like a huge difference, because I guess LinkedIn Premium will tell you if you're 10% of that job, of those people who are applying, stuff like that.
Yes.
So it was like a huge difference as to the different jobs I was applying to after I got the LinkedIn Premium, and then going into Indeed and looking at different jobs and setting up, looking at the different skill set and what are match my next like career path. So, but after that, now I've like started applying to different jobs, which has been an update to everything that's been going on after the classes. So it was just an update with you and everybody else.
It makes me so happy. Oh my God. Sorry. Sorry. I love it when good things happen. Like that's literally the whole point, is I'm like, I want good career things and job things. And it's okay. Like I'll say everybody hits a dip. We all hit parts where things are slow, but it's like always, I love hearing also like when things are going really well, because it's like a lot of it is like our mindset, you know, and it's like having faith that like, you know, we keep doing things better. We're going to continue to get better. And, you know, we're all going to have dips, but I'm also like super proud when we're like soaring and and seeing that difference. Thank you for sharing that. So next week is going to be a bit of a different format. Next week is like the 5th class, which I said is an optional class. But next week we're having my actual career coach, who I've worked for the last last 5 years, and her name is Julia Turner. And we're talking about like dealing with imposter syndrome, self-doubt, and talking about how all of that ties into your career, and especially how it impacts your job search. And I think this is going to be more of like a fireside chat and and discussion, because I wanted to be less about like, here are slides and here are the tips. I want to kind of talk about my experience and talk with Julia just like very openly about like where I've been, because she knows where I've been like mentally and emotionally in some of my career transitions and that sort of thing. And you know, have you guys hear that and have her talk about it. And if there's things you guys want to talk about too, in terms of like, how do you deal with this? She'll be here for that. Like she's a career coach, but she especially is like in the realm of like helping people with like their mindset around like their career. And so that's really what her specialty is. And it's really helped me. And it's not that like, I don't ever have doubts or that kind of thing, but it's really gotten me to a place where it's like a lot easier for me to not go into this state where I'm like, oh my God, what if I never get into this field? Or, oh my God, what if I never achieve this? Or like that kind of thing, because that mindset is so strong. And but it's also, it's not just like the mindset thing. It's like, there are very real things around the job search that like depression, imposter syndrome, and some of these things are based on things that we have no control over. And Julia is really good at like acknowledging those things, but also not leaving you in a place where you feel like hopeless. So I really hope you join us next week for that. Like Julia is like amazing. Like obviously I'm biased because she's been my coach for like the last like 5 years, but yeah, I really hope you join us for that. And again, it's more open format. So if you guys even have specific questions and you're like, every time I go for this type of thing, like I just think about what if it doesn't happen? How do I get over that? You know, bring those type of questions. Feel free to interrupt. This is not going to be like a PowerPoint slide type of conversation. I'll definitely have things that I'm going to talk about from my career, like real examples. So if you don't bring questions, like there'll definitely be like stuff where you can at least like hear and reflect on and maybe identify with them, even if you're like, I don't feel comfortable talking about it in front of a group. Does anyone have any questions? No? Okay. Well, I will send out. So also I'm going to have to change how we do the recordings, because apparently Zoom has a limit on how many cloud recordings you can do a month. Who knew? And they want a lot more money for cloud recordings. So I'm going to upload this video directly into Google Drive. And you'll have access to it. The homework's also there. So I will send that out. If not I'll be honest, I'm probably going to send this out tomorrow, because today is my birthday and I'm going to have cake after this. But then I'll send this out tomorrow. Yeah. And if you have any questions at all on the homework or anything, please let me know. I'm here to help. Like, I want to see you succeed. Sky, I got your email. I just haven't had a chance to reply back. Like, we're definitely going to sync. You know, again, like, I want to see you succeed, like, regardless of the pandemic. And like, it's also a thing where it's like it just, don't be hard on yourself, everyone, just because it is a hard time, you know? So it's a challenging job market, but you got this. And like, already by going through all of this, like, you're much further ahead than so many people. So I just want to say, also, like, give yourself like a round of applause for that. Awesome. Okay.
Have a good birthday and have a good night, everybody.
Thank you so much. Yes. Well, thank you, everyone. And I will see you here next week. And I will send this, if you don't see a recording sent out tonight, I'll send this out tomorrow. Thank you so much and have a great night.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.